everyone. Welcome to another live stream on the History By podcast. And tonight I'm joined by Dr. Robert and Price. We're finishing up Price Week today. This is the 7th episode of season 2 of Price Week. I believe the last Price Week we did was about 3 years ago. But anyway, today we're covering the last of the 7 so-called genuine letters of Paul, the epistle to Philemon. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody real quick, the links to purchase Bob's books will be in the description below and the pinned comment, including the link to his Substack page. With that being said, tonight's discussion is based on his book, The Amazing Colossal Apostle. The link to this book will also be provided down there as well. That being said, Bob, thank you for joining me tonight.
Oh boy, always a delight.
The Epistle to Philemon is the smallest of the letters of Paul and also the shortest of the so-called 7 letters of Paul, the 7 authentic ones, or the lucky 7, as you like to call them. When you read Philemon, what jumps out at you when you read it, and what is in there that indicates to you that it is yet another forgery?
Well, the biggest thing is something W.C. von Manen pointed out, that it sounds so much like one of the letters from Pliny Secundus, or Pliny the Younger, where it's the same basic scenario. He's interceding for an escaped slave, etc. It's astoundingly close to this, and it just makes you think that is this simply a Christian rewrite of this? I wish I had the text in front of me, but it's in any collection of Pliny's letters, and that's one thing. But there's another problem that kind of jumps out at me right at the beginning. Paul, a prisoner for Christ Jesus, and Timothy, our brother, to Philemon, our beloved fellow worker, and Apphia, or however you say it, our sister, and Archippus, our fellow soldier, and the church in your house. And then, it's obvious he knows these people, but they're supposed to be in Colossae, and are mentioned in Colossians. But how can that be if he says let's see what he actually says at the beginning of Colossians. In Colossians, no, I'm sorry, he says he's not been there. He doesn't know their church personally, but rather his colleague Epaphroditus, I think it is, has been Epaphras, as he calls him here, at 7. Just as you learned it from Epaphras, our beloved fellow servant, he is a faithful minister of Christ on your behalf, or on our behalf. Different manuscripts have different readings, and has made known to us your love in the Spirit. And so from the day we heard, we have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will and all spiritual wisdom and understanding, etc., and so forth. But in Philemon, he knows them well. I don't know how you would. I mean, this is a real problem, in that whoever knew enough to refer to characters in Colossians, how could he make such a goof? What, did he know them or not? And it just seems very, very strange. Did somebody just forget? Mentions his associates Aristarchus and Mark and Epaphras and so forth, and So what's the deal? And also the idea this is kind of an important one, at least in terms of a kind of apologetics, because there are these passages in the other letters which say slaves obey your masters in all things, which has kind of unpleasant possibilities included within it. Uh, but here it's at least the way apologists treat it. It's got Paul trying to do his bit to plant the seed to oppose slavery in the name of Christ. But if that's the case, it's tiny as a mustard seed, right? Because what's the point of this? The way scholars read between the lines, and this does sound plausible to me, uh, Onesimus whose name means useful, by the way, and it's the subject of various puns in the letter. Well, he wasn't much good to you. He wasn't very useful, but now he is useful. It's like he's poking him in the ribs. Yeah, I get it, Paul. But this guy was a slave and ran away from his master. And as I'm sure everybody here knows, that was like a capital offense. That's one of the things that got you a ticket to the cross. And if you were captured, obviously. And this guy did flee. We're not told why. I mean, you'd think a slave would flee if he was being abused, but you don't really want that implication, right? Because that implies that his Christian master was beating the hell out of him or whatever. But he's in trouble. He now realizes he's in trouble, and he remembers Paul, it seems, from his visits to Philemon's master's house, Onesimus's master, Philemon, his household. And so he's on the lam, and he thinks, gee, where can I crash? Good old Paul, I believe he's not far from here. I'll take shelter with him and hope he will hide me for a while till I can figure out what to do. But apparently he was not yet converted to Christ, and Paul manages to, I don't want to say this in an invidious way, but sort of takes advantage of the guy's state of vulnerability. Says, you could really use faith in Christ. He'll take care of you. Oh, okay. And so Paul says, here's what we'll try to do. I was instrumental in Philemon's conversion too, and he owes me one. And so I'm going to write a letter on your behalf asking him to just overlook the thing, given that you're repentant and you're going back home. Won't you give him a break here? It's me, Paul, asking. You owe your own salvation to me. So how about it? And of course, he's putting Onesimus in a heck of a situation, because if he takes this letter back to Philemon, Philemon could crumple it up and say, nothing doing, you SOB. It's the cross for you. Oh, no. What was the result if this was actually a Pauline letter? Edgar J. Goodspeed, a great early 20th century New Testament critic, he believed that since in the Ignatian epistles, one of the churches to whom Ignatius or pseudo Ignatius is writing has a bishop named Onesimus. And now this wasn't really an uncommon name, right? But he says, Onesimus, could this be the same guy? I bet it was. And that so he was genuinely converted. He went back home. Philemon was impressed, gave him his freedom as Paul requested, by the way. And that's a heck of a request. He wants him not only not to prosecute Onesimus, but to free him, because Paul has learned to rely on him. He goes to the post office for him, goes and picks up the pizza and so on. So Goodspeed figured that, yeah, he eventually became the bishop of this house church, or bigger concern by then, I guess. And that gee, who would have had more of a reason to want to collect the Pauline epistles? I'll bet it was Onesimus, because he owed so much to a single, albeit minor, epistle of Paul. He would have been so grateful. He would have wanted to carry on Paul's legacy, and that he went around to the various churches and, do you have any letters from Paul here? Because if so, I'd like to make them more broadly available. Oh, you do, huh? It gets to Corinth, and they said, well, yeah, we have these scraps. Nobody really took care of them. They lined a bird cage with a page of this one, and so on. But here's what we've got. And Onesimus or somebody would have said, well, like the Dead Sea Scrolls scholars, right? They got a bunch of tattered scraps, holding with tweezers. Let's see if we can restore the jigsaw puzzle here. According to Goodspeed, that Onesimus was a major character, or so he theorized, right? He wasn't dogmatic about it, but he said, boy, that's tempting. It would make a lot of sense, and it would give us some idea of who collected the epistles and why they did it. Well, yeah, it would if it were true, but that's just what we don't know. And that helps you avoid a Marcionite connection, because Goodspeed's student, Knox, thought maybe it wasn't Onesimus, but he preserved as much of the theory as he could, but he thought that Marcion was the one, if I'm not mistaken, who made the first collection of the epistles and so forth. So if that's the case, then Philemon is, in a sense, the thing that started the snowball growing into the Pauline canon. And if for no other reason, if that's true, it would make Philemon quite a pivotal document in canonical history. But who knows? There aren't a lot of references to things going on, but it really is a great fun epistle because of the puns and stuff. And I'm not going to actually tell you what to do, but you do owe me your salvation. Let's not forget that. And it's very clever, the whole thing. And but it does seem to me that it's late because of the confusion. Is this by a guy that knew this family in Colossae, or who only knew them through a representative of his? That's an oddball thing, it seems to me. And that kind of authorial confusion seems to me to hint that something is not straight here.
We got a super chat question from Solar Knight. Thank you for your super chat. Aphia, Philemon, and Archippus were stoned to death in Colossae by other pagans. Explain real order of Melchizedek. Still active today, Hebrews 5:6.
Were they? What's the origin of the idea of the martyrdom of these three people? I don't think it says that in Philemon. Does it in Colossians somewhere?
It's probably referring to later church martyrologies.
Because I never even heard of their names, but obviously you have. It's good to, I'll have to check that out. And as to the Order of Melchizedek, you do know, I'm sure, that the Latter-day Saint, the Mormon church, still keeps that active, or they have used that name for their ordination, though I believe all male members at least are inducted into the priestly order of Melchizedek. And this thing for which they get uncharitably ridiculed, having sacred underwear, that's a nasty way of putting it. It's like, since they're all priests technically, which is certainly a New Testament idea, right? We're priestly people and all that. And the Old Testament priests had certain linen, a linen ephod and garment and so forth. They have such a thing. And but what was the original biblical order of Melchizedek? It goes back to Genesis 14 with Abraham, after he and his ally, I always crack up at this, Chedorlaomer. I always say, I guess he invented the cheddar cheese or something. But anyway, this guy was the king of Sodom, and he teams up with Abraham to battle these other kings, and which Abraham does, because Lot has been taken prisoner, and he gets him back and so forth. And he then goes to offer, I think, a tithe of his taking, his loot from the war, to Melchizedek, the priest of El Elyon. It says, the maker of heaven and earth. And Melchizedek comes out publicly to greet and bless Abraham. May be blessed by El Elyon, possessor of heaven and earth. And then in return, Abraham says, may you be blessed by Yahweh El Elyon, as if they're the same God, which they're not in Deuteronomy 32, interestingly. But this guy was the priest king of Salem, or which became Jerusalem. So he would have been, what the heck? A Semitic king, a Jebusite, I guess. And apparently all of their kings, it was a city-state, and right between Israel in the north and Judah in the south. And when David became king and had the United Kingdom, at least according to the story, I don't know if archaeology backs that up, he chose Jerusalem to be his capital for the same reason that Washington, D.C. was chosen to be the capital of the United States. It was neither part of the North or the South, so neither section could lord it over the other. It's right on the border. Well, they had this line of sacred priest kings through most of the history of Judah, at least, well, Israel and Judah, they had priest kings like Solomon. Solomon is the one that supposedly built the Jerusalem temple and offered sacrifice in it. Now, shortly thereafter, you don't hear that anymore. The priesthood and the royal throne were two different offices, but at first, the story goes, they were continuing the pattern of the Jebusite kings. Melchizedek, which means Zedek is my king. Zedek was a Jerusalemite god. His name means righteousness. And Melchi, another version of Molech or Milcom or Malach. It's the consonants in Hebrew words that determine the range of meaning. The vowels are negligible. And so Melchizedek was a throne name. Zedek is my king, the divine king. And there's another one the Bible mentions, Adonai-Zedek. Well, that obviously means that Zedek is my Lord. So there were some variations on it. And Psalm 110 appears to be part of the ordination liturgy of the Hebrew kings when it was that office was still united with the priesthood. And let's take a fast look at that. This one is quoted quite often in the New Testament because they apply it to the risen Christ. Okay. Yahweh says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. In other words, your foot will be on their neck. You will have defeated them. Yahweh sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people will offer themselves freely on the day of your power in holy garments. From the womb of Shahar, most translations say the womb of the morning, but it's actually a proper name, Shahar, the dawn goddess. You know how it says in another psalm, if I take the wings of the dawn and fly away to the uttermost limits of the earth, even there you'll find me. The wings of Shahar, the light that first appears along the horizon just before the sun appears to rise. Well, she was a goddess, and her brother was Shalman, the evening god, the sunset god. Solomon was named for him. Okay. From the womb of Shahar, the dew of your youth will be yours. Actually, the dew, that's another divine name, but they've kind of suppressed that because they don't like you to know that the Israelites were polytheists. Okay. Verse 4, Yahweh has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Aha! King and priest on the throne in Jerusalem, just like he was. Adonai, the Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations, filling them with corpses. He will shatter chiefs over the wide earth. He will drink from the brook by the way, therefore he will lift up his head. Not quite sure what that's supposed to mean, but this is obviously a hymn sung to and by different parts of the newly enthroned priest king of Jerusalem. I guess they continued to use it even when they had separated the offices. But nonetheless, this is quoted several times in the New Testament saying this is really a prophetic anticipation of Jesus. That's kind of getting the cart before the horse, actually, because but there is a relation, because the idea that Jesus being enthroned at the right hand of God, right, of the throne right next to him, that's part of the original coronation liturgy. And they figure that the messianic king, Jesus, is therefore the anointed or Messiah of God and the Son of God, and the priest on the order of Melchizedek. And you know how big that looms in the epistle of the Hebrews. There's this whole fascinating history of what they did with these powerful symbols. But originally it had to do with every Hebrew king. All of them were considered God's sons and God's anointeds or messiahs. And of course, both, even when they split the offices. Both king and priest were anointed ones. The anointing oil symbolizing the Spirit of God, giving them wisdom and power. So I know you didn't ask for a whole darn dissertation on that, but yeah, that's the priesthood of Melchizedek. And again, as far as I know, it's only the Mormons who have revived that, just like they have baptism, vicarious baptism for the dead. Fascinating folks.
Solar Knight, thank you for another super chat. Enemies a footstool, a Roman emperor speaking.
Jewish king, but it is the same idea that your enemies will be reduced to degradation. That now they're really good for nothing except being slaves, and here's the ultimate humiliation of a foreign king. But that is the idea. It kind of recalls one of the parables in Luke, where Jesus says, imagine a guy that goes away to receive the kingly position to be granted by the emperor, and suppose his subjects, because he's already in effect a king, he wants it made official. They say, no, no, no. If he's made officially the king, we will never hear the end of it. So they send a delegation to the emperor and said, please, we will not have this man to reign over us. In fact, this is based on, I believe, Archelaus, one of the sons of Herod, and so the guy gets the job anyway. And when he comes back, he says, well, I know some of you didn't want me to be king, but I'm afraid you backed the wrong horse. Bring those bastards in and kill them right in front of me. The floor show. Yikes. That's the same idea here. Only it's the kings of defeated countries will be reduced to being a piece of furniture. But yeah, that is, it might as well be a Caesar. It's the same sort of thing.
What do you think the point to forging the epistle to Philemon was?
It might have been an attempt to get Christian slave owners to consider manumitting them, because that's almost sounds like I'd be reading in modern sensibilities in there, but no, the Stoics were already teaching that slavery was against nature. I think some others did too, and so that was not an exclusively modern development. They already had, if I don't know that they had a campaign for abolitionism. Politics and government didn't work that way then. But early Christians, I believe already in the 2nd century, were fundraising to get enough money to buy Christian convert slaves, to buy them and say, well, now that I own you, I'm setting you free, brother. And so they had a liturgy of manumission of slaves. If they were doing that early, and they were, I suspect that creating the Epistle to Philemon was a way of making that not only legitimate, but encouraging Christians to do it. Because if Paul said to do it, well, I guess we better. And but you couldn't actually have him say, let's free all the slaves, because that would have been just so anachronistic. People would say, what? I never heard of anybody saying that. But again, the seed was planted, and it took root, right? Because they did have these manumission ceremonies. That's one of the reasons Christianity was so popular and grew so well. It's funny to me, ironic that some apologists, like what's his name, Holding, um, says he it's some sort of a book where he said that Christianity was so stupid and repulsive in the eyes of its contemporaries that you have to credit it with God hypnotizing people into being converted. Because if it was simply a choice to make, they'd have never made it. It was just too offensive. Get out of here. If anything, it's just the opposite. Christians were known, as Tertullian says, and as Julian the Apostate said, were noticed for being on the job during the frequent building collapses, earthquakes, pestilences. They would to their own people, but also unbelievers. They didn't care. They would try to help anybody that needed it. They were against uh, infant exposure. I mean, that seems obvious now, but it wasn't. In fact, there's a great surah in the Quran that says, "On the day of judgment, when the dead rise, the girl infants who were buried alive will come out and say, 'What did we do to deserve that?'" And they that was part of Islam outlawing infant exposure. Why'd they do that? Why did Roman pagans do that? Well, they were afraid of having too many mouths to feed. If they had girls, just think of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This guy has 4 daughters, no sons, and the daughters can't inherit once he dies. And so his wife is desperately trying to get them all married off. Well, that was the same sort of thing, only in ancient Rome. They'd have just as soon killed them. I mean, literally put them out to the curb for the garbage to pick up. As horrific as it sounds. Of course, we're pretty close to that, it seems to me, with the abortion holocaust. I realize there are arguments on both sides, but I'll just level with you and tell you I think it is a horrific mistake. But early Christians were against that too. In some of the very early documents, like the Apocalypse of Peter and the Didache and so forth, they say that if you abort infant to be, you got a place waiting for you in hell. And they did stop the when they had the power, the exposure, but life has become pretty cheap again, sadly. Anyhow, there were a lot of noble things going on in early Christianity, and the manumission of slaves was also one of those things that made the faith attractive when other faiths didn't bother with it. I mean, good book on that, by the way, would be E.R. Dodd's, Dodds, Pagan and Christian in an Age of Anxiety. And another good one by sociologist Roger Stark, Christian, I think it's Christian Begin. What is it? No, The Rise of Christianity. He shows that there's nothing all that surprising about the rate of growth of early Christianity. And he points out a lot of the same things. And Holding's just trying to build a God of the gaps thing. For Christianity to have succeeded, it must have been divine inspiration. No, you're insulting your own religion when you say that. No, the early Christians had a lot to be proud of, and they ought to be given credit for it. Anyway, that may be why Philemon was written, to encourage that sort of thing.
What do you make of the argument that's noted by Heinrich August Wilhelm Mayer? I think that's his name. he wrote in a book. It's titled "The Critical and Exegetical Handbook to the Epistles of the Philippians and Colossians," Volume
Hmm.
9. It's published in 1875.
Hmm.
And the footnote here, he writes, Hitzig in page 31 gives it as his opinion that Archippus is indebted for his exhortation not to the apostle, but to the manipulator who knew this man indeed from Philemon too, but probably had in his mind the Flavius Archippus, well known from Pliny's epistle 10,
Hmm.
his 10th epistle. Yeah, that's what he's saying.
That would
So,
fit. Mhm.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got yet another uh, synchronicity between Pliny, Philemon, and Colossians, I don't want to commit the error of saying, well, there would only be one or two people in the whole civilization with this name, so it has to be the same guy. No, but given the link with Pliny and all that, you really do have to wonder. Archippus just means horse trainer, by the way, and it wasn't that uncommon a name, but still, that's an interesting, meaningful coincidence in the sense of coinciding, not necessarily a chance agreement. So that would make sense. Where'd he get it? Maybe from Pliny.
Well, what's interesting about that is that we're told that um, at the end or toward the end of Emperor Domitian's reign, Flavius Archippus, well, I don't know if it was toward the end, but it was sometime during Domitian's reign. Flavius Archippus was ordered to be released, and then there's a passage, I can't remember if it's in Philemon or Colossians, probably Colossians, in which it is stated that by Paul or his co-author, one of them, that he should return to work in the Lord. Well, what stopped him from working in the Lord, such as his imprisonment? And then was he released? Is that why he said, return to work in the Lord? That seems to fit the idea that he's
Mm,
Flavius Archippus, who was
mm.
imprisoned in the early 80s AD and was ordered to be released later on.
Yeah. I wonder if that's in the wait a second, in the closing.
Let me get you the exact verse.
Yeah,
Hold on.
yeah. I think it's in 4, Colossians chapter 4. Um, oh, well, let me read a bit.
Colossians 4:17.
Yeah. And say to Archippus, see that you fulfill the ministry that you have received in the Lord. Um, and you've got Onesimus in here too. Yeah. Tychicus will tell you all about my activities. He's a beloved brother and faithful minister and fellow servant of the Lord. I've sent him to you for this very purpose, that you may know how we are and that he may encourage your hearts. And with him, Onesimus, our faithful and beloved brother, who is one of you. They'll tell you of everything that has taken place. And Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, greets you, and Mark, the cousin of Barnabas, etc., etc. And Luke, the beloved physician, greets you, as does Demas, and so forth. That's interesting to me because I believe Demas is also mentioned in Second Timothy as having departed and left Paul awaiting his trial, because there's a theory out there that Apollonius of Tyana was the same as Paul, and that the two names might even be related. And in the Life of Apollonius by Philostratus, uh, when Apollonius is awaiting trial before Domitian, uh, from which he miraculously escapes, he sends Demas, almost the same name as Damas, back east, where he then shortly rejoins him, having miraculously teleported across Europe to get there bodily. There's all kinds of fascinating dots to connect here.
Well, in order to believe that, you would have to believe that Apollonius of Tyana was rewritten to be a Christian because he wasn't one.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people say, and again, this is a wild shot in the dark that I don't accept. Some think that Apollonius and Jesus were the same guy. Now, there are a lot of similarities, and between and some of Paul's itinerary matches the same cities in the same order that Apollonius visited, but who the heck knows? But Apollonius is very important for New Testament studies because the Philostratus's biography, or should I say hagiography, of Apollonius in form is so much like the Gospels that Eusebius tried to brush it off, saying, well, it's copied from the Gospels, but it's so different in other ways. I don't see that. But what it's famous for is showing that the genre of Gospels was not a uniquely Christian invention, because these religious hero biographies, like I think there are 4 lives of Pythagoras written with miracle stories and the like, and there's a satirical one by Lucian of Samosata, the Proteus Peregrinus, sort of sometimes cynic, sometimes Christian, who immolates himself and flies up to heaven from the pyre as in the form of an eagle, and so forth, so that gospel type stories were not unheard of or unusual. I did a long piece in the first revival issue of the Journal of Higher Criticism a few years ago called "Was There a Historical Apollonius of Tyana?" in which I argue probably not. And I try to say that's the case because it's relevant to the parallel case of Jesus. Are we really dealing with biographical information in the Gospels? Well, how about the similar genre writing, the life of Apollonius? And I conclude, no, it's pretty much the same kind of fictional stuff. Maybe neither one of them was any more than a narrative heroic paradigm for the reader to emulate. But yeah, there are all these connections. If you haven't read that, everybody would enjoy reading Apollonius. It's really fascinating. I'm sorry, Jacob, go ahead.
Just to correct myself, because I think I might have said his name wrong. I think I said August after Wilhelm when I meant to say Heinrich August Wilhelm Mayer.
Oh.
That's the one I was referring to earlier. The author of that critical and exegetical handbook to the epistles to Philippians and Colossians. One last thing before we go is, what do you make of the arguments that some, like Dr. Joe Wilson, makes that the epistle to Philemon, when it talks about Philemon, is actually referring to the slave, the slave critic, the Philemon of Athens. He lived about 300-400 years before Jesus. He was critical of slavery. I don't remember if he was a full-scale abolitionist, but he was a critical of slavery. What do you make of that?
I never heard of that. That's fascinating. So if this is an ideal character, and to promote the idea of freeing slaves, at least who were Christians, whatever, that would make an awful lot of sense. You know, what name you gonna pick? And yeah, that's good. I've learned something here.
Yeah, I might be misremembering some details, but Philemon of Athens, or Philemon the poet, he said something about slavery. I just can't exactly remember
Huh. I'll have to look that up.
off the top of my head right now what those exact details are.
Hmm.
But I found the argument pretty convincing that
Yeah.
Philemon is really him. It's the same person, and he's either Paul or the person pretending to be Paul or somebody else, or if it really is by Paul, either way, was making up a fictional Christian called Philemon based on him.
You know, Philemon appears implicitly in Acts 14, I think, when Paul and Barnabas are preaching to the Lycaonians, I think, and they think that Paul and Barnabas are Zeus and Hermes, or Jupiter and Mercury, and that's a reflection of the Greek story set before the flood, when Zeus and Hermes are going door to door on earth to check out the state of mankind. Are these people bad enough that we ought to drown them all like rats? Well, let's just go and do a candid camera thing. And they go to 3 houses, and the only one that's any good is a hut in which Baucis and Philemon live. They're an old couple, and they have virtually nothing to eat or drink, but what little they have, they give to these trick-or-treaters. They don't know that they're gods, and because of that charity, they ferret out that these are gods, and they say, well, yeah, you caught us, you're right, and for this you're going to stay together forever, because when you die, we will make you two into trees holding up the lintel of a temple to Zeus. And then that comes up again in Revelation. To him who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the house of my God. So they don't use the names, but it has to be a reference to Baucis and Philemon. There's an interesting little vein in the New Testament with that name.
Solar Knight, thank you for your super chat. Word man means Satan in ancient Sanskrit.
Oh, I have no idea. Christian Lintner once told me that if I really wanted to study Christian origins, I had to learn Sanskrit. I said, that's never going to happen. I'll leave that to you. But, wish I knew it.
Well, all right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and close. Again, the link to purchase The Amazing Colossal Apostle will be in the description below in the pinned comment, including the other books that Bob has written and published over the years, and also a link to his Substack page as well. And that being said, Bob, thanks for joining me tonight.
Okay, I hope you get better real quick.
Yeah, thank you. I think I will.
Hello viewers, thanks for watching this video from the History Valley YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if any of you wish to further support this channel, please consider checking out this channel's Patreon page and becoming a patron. And or donate through PayPal or through Super Chat during your live stream. Thank you.